Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast Beautiful You. I'm your host, Avantika. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Today is the last episode for the month of May where we celebrated Mental Health Awareness Month. It's a solo episode where I talk about 6 things I learned in therapy. Now, before we dive into it, I'm gonna be honest. I am traveling at the moment, and I got sick. I'm traveling up north, and it's cold, and I'm not used to this temperature. And I may or may not have had ice cream last night, which made me shiver the entire night. And right now even my hands and feet are very cold, and I don't have a lot of warm clothes because I wasn't expecting the temperature to drop down this low. Anyways, I hope you guys bear with me for the entirety of the episode because it's a little difficult to speak up, because of being a little sick. Anyways, I understand that seeking therapy can be a little overwhelming for most of us when you don't understand how the process looks like, or what exactly goes into the therapeutic process, or how to find the right therapist for you and such. It definitely is a process that is scary to start. So we, in one of our prompts for mental wellness campaign, we shared resources to understand therapy better. If you check our Instagram at the beautifulyou.pod, you would find highlights of stories where we shared prompts related to that. So yeah, if you guys want to know more about therapy, we have shared the resources on our Instagram. Do check it out. So diving into the episode, I have been in and out of therapy for about 5 years now. I have had 3 psychiatrists, 4 therapists in total so far. It's very difficult to find the right psychiatrist and the right therapist for you, for sure. And the current one that I'm going right now, the current therapist that I'm seeing at the moment, I have been going to him for more than a year, and I'm so confident in a relationship now that I don't see myself changing my therapist anytime in the future at all. So honestly, full disclosure, our main focus has been helping me accept and manage my diagnosis of bipolar disorder type 2. I was diagnosed with it in 2020, and just whenever you get any sort of a diagnosis, it kind of puts you in a box. So just starting the process from understanding what exactly bipolar is, to accepting it, and to help yourself manage your lifestyle with the disorder. It's a long process, and that has been our main goal. Of course, I've been learning a lot about life and myself and other people in therapy as well, but that was our main focus. So I honestly learned way too much in the last 1.5 year in therapy, rather 5 years of therapy, to be honest. But when I was sitting down to write content for this episode, I figured I will just write down the latest ones because I keep on changing. And I noticed that growing up, a lot of things go hand in hand. It's not always things that I learned in therapy, but sometimes it's also the things that you learn in general, and then you discuss those things in therapy, and those just get solidified, if you get what I mean. So anyways, diving into the 6 things I learned in therapy, the first one is dealing with the fear of not being good enough. So it is one of my biggest fears growing up, and I still deal with it sometimes. I feel like even when it comes to personal or professional life, any aspects of my life, I sometimes feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not worthy of certain things, or I'm not just good enough to have certain people in my life, or to have certain opportunities come to me, or just in general, you just deal with the fear of not being good enough, which is so common. And then I was discussing this one time in a therapy session, and my therapist asked me, okay, but the fear of not being good enough, but from whose perspective? He further elaborated that when we have this fear of not being good enough, it's always about being good enough from someone's perspective. It's not about am I doing something, it's more so about am I doing something that's liked by them, and I will be worthy of them only if the thing that I'm doing is liked by them. So for example, to elaborate it further, take a certain action of yours. It's not about if you're doing that certain action, it's about if that certain action is liked by someone that maybe you look up to, or someone whose opinion you value. For example, the latest example I'll give you. So I'm solo traveling at the moment, and the theme of this trip is that my only plan is no plan, which is terrifying and exciting at the same time. So what happened was, 4 days into my trip, only out of 4 days, only 2 days did I do a lot of stuff. One day was just me recovering because I had a lot of traveling, 10-12 hours of traveling, and then I was running on 3 hours of sleep and stuff. And then one day I was just existing and I was just chilling and I was making plans for the rest of the trip. So it made me wonder if I'm doing it right, if I'm even like good enough of calling myself a solo traveler, if I'm doing these things right, because we always have this pressure of doing it right, which is approved by someone else. But then I made myself question, whose opinion am I valuing here the most? Am I enjoying what am I doing? Is this particular action bringing joy to me and all that such? So yeah, basically he mentioned about how different people have different expectations and we can't always fit in everyone's boxes. So for example, later on I spoke to some of my friends who have solo traveled, and they're like, they do that all the time. They might take up like rest up for one day, will do touristy stuff for one day, then again like just relax and be in the city, or just have fun and not do much, like not have a occupied busy day. But then from someone else's perspective it might be like, oh, but like that's a waste of time, why wouldn't you go out and do as many things as you could when you're traveling? So like you can't fit everyone's boxes, everyone has different expectations, and your standards of being good enough should be according to your own beliefs and perceptions. They shouldn't change because of someone else's standards. And then another thing he mentioned was that your own standards will change because you keep on changing. So as you evolve, your beliefs and your perceptions change, hence your own standards of being good enough will change. Like my definition of being good enough when I was, let's say, 12 is way different than when I'm 20. The other thing was that people will have opinions, that's a fact, and we need to develop the ability to weigh it. And I think that also has to do a lot with trusting yourself and having a good relationship with yourself. For example, after France, I took a trip to France in 2022, so last year, and I realized that after that trip, my mind-body connection has got way better. I have I've been inclining more towards understanding how my body responds to certain situations, people. And I feel, it might sound weird, but I feel certain things in my body in certain situations. So I really pay attention to how my body is reacting and responding to different things. So yeah, I feel like the ability to weigh people's opinions also has to do with your relationship with yourself. We often end up just underplaying ourselves because we're so used to playing low. I'm growing more into the mindset that good things will happen to me, and when they do, I'll be deserving of it. If something doesn't happen the way I wanted to, let's say at the time I wanted to, I believe that it's the universe telling me either not yet or I have something better planned for you. It's I know it's cliche, I know, but it really works because you tend to learn how to trust the universe in the process, even on days you really don't feel like it. Speaking of the process, it's the journey and not the destination. So I guess the second thing that I learned in therapy was understanding the importance of enjoying the process. So in one of our recent sessions, and by recent I mean like 3 months back, my therapist had mentioned that the mood episodes that I deal with when it comes to bipolar disorder, they have a will of their own. And the goal is never to, never experience the episodes. It's rather to be functional and okay despite them. So what happens is, there are a lot of triggers, obviously, which end up triggering my mood episodes, but sometimes there aren't any visible triggers. So it's very hard for me to navigate through it. And it feels very tiring and unfair because I find myself always just, in the phase where I need to check myself time and again, and it's just honestly tiring. But him letting me know that the episodes have a will of their own, and it's rather you just focus on the journey of it, on how you move past those episodes, through those episodes is what matters. Your best looks different on different days. When you focus on the journey, you're better able to understand how to, equip your needs. And not just like with bipolar, dealing with bipolar, even in normal everyday life, focusing on the journey and enjoying the process will make you want to stick to it longer. So for example, this is a very 16-15-year-old Indian Indian kid experience. So when I was in 9th grade, I watched Grey's Anatomy, and I was so fascinated by the idea of being a surgeon, saving lives, and feeling that importance of your own life, having that purpose, and also being rich because surgeons earn a lot. And I just really liked the end goal of it, But when I started preparing for NEET, which is a medical entrance exam, to get into, a med school, I realized that I don't enjoy the process. I don't enjoy studying 10 hours a day. I don't enjoy learning about these things. I just want to be a surgeon. I don't want to go through all these hardships. And then I ended up choosing psychology as my major for my college, and I couldn't be happier. I love the process of it. I love understanding humans. I love case studies. I love everything that we are doing. I genuinely love the course that we have. So now, after I realized that, it's always about the process, I've been focusing on asking myself, will I enjoy the process of it, or am I just too fascinated by the end result? So another thing that I've noticed is everything that I've been able to do so far, and everything that I've been able to pull off, it's because I enjoy the process. So currently, I am a full-time student. I also have a part-time job where I teach English and I run a podcast. And there are also a bunch of things I do here and there. It's a long list, honestly. And I realized that I may not enjoy every second of it, and that's okay. It's not always fun and games, honestly. But there's no point in doing something that makes you miserable for majority of the time. So I always just focus on the process and not the destination, because you just never know where a certain thing will take you. The third thing that I learned in therapy was accepting that people you look up to may mess up too sometimes. So one of the things that I had to learn at a very young age was to, be there for myself and not lean on to other people. I had a very difficult childhood growing up, and I had to lean on to myself from a very young age, and I had to take care of myself and, make sure that my needs are met and such. And it made me realize that and accept that parents screw up all the time. And not just parents, any adults that you look up to, be it your caregivers, guardians, or anyone else that you look up to, they mess up all the times. They're humans and they're trying their best the way they know how to. And it's unfair, but not all of our needs are going to be met. And as we grow up, we need to give that love to our inner child, take accountability of our healing, and fulfill the, unfulfilled needs. So just acceptance of that has made me be okay with my needs not being met, and then making me more empowered to do so myself now that I am growing up. The fourth thing is changing thought processes. So there have been a lot of thought patterns and processes that I had changed in the last few years, but one of the main ones that I feel like it's relatable as well is changing the thought process of they should to I wish they would. So my therapist basically mentioned that whenever there is a should, it's a demand and not an expectation. You know how sometimes in your thoughts you always feel but they should have done that, they should have done this, they should have showed up, or whatever it is, whatever thoughts that you have. Whenever there is a should, it's a demand and not an expectation. So when you shift it from they should to I wish they would, it brings a lot of accountability, autonomy. It's just expectations then, it brings on to yourself. And when there are basically demands, it creates grounds for frustration and anger. So when you shift your thought process from something being a demand to something being an expectation, there's way less room for frustration. The fifth thing is that your energy is finite and you are the resource. So this one has a lot to do with living with bipolar. Energy levels and mood swings are very highly correlated, and I've grown to be very careful with where and how I spend my energy and time with, be it with certain people or places. So I'm very careful with my social circle, with who I spend my everyday life with and everything. But this has also helped me a lot with everyday life. I feel like it also helps one from being burnt out. We often place too many things on our plate and exhaust ourselves too much. So understanding that your energy is very limited and it comes from you will help you pace yourself at the speed that's good for your own well-being. It will help you understand why you would feel exhausted. And yeah, it's basically good for your own well-being when you keep yourself in check, and you're the resource. So you need to be careful with where you put your energy in. Last but not the least, the sixth thing that I learned in therapy, which honestly, this is kind of my favorite, I'm not gonna lie. It's very relevant to today's dating scenario when ghosting has become so common and easy. So people show interest in the initial days and then they just suddenly change your minds, and it leaves you so confused because it's like, oh, but things were going so well, and then the person suddenly ghosts, or suddenly it's like, oh, this is not working out, but then there were no signs of it. So it's frustrating, right? So I had this incident happen with me where I was really into this guy and it was very reciprocal, or that's what it seemed like. Anyways, so I had this incident where I was into this guy and it was reciprocal, and then things were going so well. My friends liked it, he liked it, my friends enjoyed it, they were supportive and everything. And then suddenly one day he's like, yo, we need to talk, and then he's just suddenly not in it, and I'm like, it does not make sense to me. It does not make sense to me whatsoever, because there were no signs of it. It's not like I missed anything. All of my friends were surprised. It just seemed so out of nowhere. And this was one incident that, took me a while to get over, and it just didn't make sense. So I was like talking about this in a therapy session, and my therapist, he mentioned that the potential that we see in people, because we seem to be like, we weren't together, but it seemed like we had a really good potential to be together, like we would be really good together and stuff. So yeah, he said that the potential is based on prediction, and predictions are based on what you know so far. I'll repeat, potential is based on prediction, and the predictions that we make are based on what you know so far. So data could change anytime, and if data is changed, prediction is changed, and if prediction is changed, potential is changed. It's a very technical terms, I know, but it made sense to me, and I'm like, that's mind-boggling. I love this. It makes sense, and it gives me a lot of security in when just things make sense. So if you're in a situationship and things just don't make sense to you, why they ended, just remember that the potential that you're seeing in someone is based on the predictions that you're making, and that prediction is based on what you've seen or what you know so far. So as things progress, as you spend more time with someone, that data that you know can change, and the predictions could change, and the potential could change. So the whole concept of, trust them when they show you who they are. Oh my god, I need to stop watching Instagram reels so much. But like the whole concept of, basically trusting people when they show you who they are is genuinely real. Like if someone tells you that, they are not good for you, don't spend too much time begging them to stay. You deserve someone who treats you as a priority and not an option. So yeah, I think this is a very good note to end the solo episode on. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and we in 2023, we don't settle for anyone. We are the freaking priority, and we deserve nothing but the best. So before I end the episode, I'm gonna give you a summary of the entire episode. So the one was dealing with fear of not being good enough. We need to stop having our standards for not being good enough according to other people's standards, because different people have different expectations and we can't fit everyone's boxes. So your standards of being good enough should be according to your own beliefs and perceptions, and your standards will change because you keep on changing, and that's okay. That is completely fine and normal. People will have opinions, and we need to develop the ability to weigh it. Then I talked about how it's the journey and not the destination, and then accepting that people that you look up to may mess up sometimes too. Then changing thought processes. One of the main things was changing from they should to I wish they would, which will help you get more accountability and autonomy in your own life. And with expectations, there's way less room for frustration. The fifth one was your energy is very finite, is limited, and you are the resource. So you have to be careful with where you spend your energy and time in, with what kind of people you invest in, what kind of events you go to, what kind of even the content that you consume and everything, just be mindful. And the sixth one is it's relevant to today's dating scenario, and potential is based on prediction, which is based on what you know so far, and data could always change. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I wanted to end today's episode on a lighter note, and even the month of May on a lighter note. In the previous episodes for this month, we talked about formation of Bipolar India with Vision Nallawala. We talked about how he went from a financial advisor to an entrepreneur and living with bipolar disorder for 4 decades. We had another guest, Piper, where we dwelled into mental health of caregivers. And then we also talked about traveling, ADHD, and anxiety with Lauren. So if you guys haven't checked those episodes out, please do so. Follow us on Instagram at @beautifulyou.pod. Our email and Instagram will be linked in the description below. Feel free to reach out. I would love to hear what you think about the episode. We would love to know what kind of content you expect us to see more of. And yeah, I hope you guys are doing great. I'll see you guys in the next episode. I love you. Bye.